Well, they've done it again. The geniuses have revamped the recommendations and the guidelines for high blood pressure in 2025, just about a month ago. And I read through it and I analyzed it. And I'm not going to bore you with every single detail, but there were some things that you should know that I find fascinating and that I think you'll find fascinating in regard to what they changed. So the last guideline that was changed was in 2017 when the American College of Cardiology got together with the American Heart Association and they wanted to redefine what it means to have hypertension and high blood pressure. And this is when they started classifying anything above 120/80 was considered elevated blood pressure. So even if you were 122/81, you were considered you got a little slap on the wrist and said, your blood pressure is starting to elevate. So the goal at that time was to make blood pressure less than 120/80. And that was, for the most part, everybody thought that was ridiculous except them. So whatever. But the guidelines are still the same. Normal blood pressure is anything below 120/80. So if you're 120 to 129/80 or less, then you're considered to have elevated blood pressure. You get a little slap on the wrist, maybe you should change your lifestyle, yada, yada, yada. You're out the door. You don't really leave the doctor's office with medication. It's when you get to 130/139, that's when you're considered to have stage 1 hypertension. Ooh, stage 1, that's bad. So, but your blood pressure for the diastolic is still below 80. So if at that point, you better start changing your lifestyle quick. And this is despite your age. So whether you're 20 years old, 40 years old, 80 years old. Now, a lot of people think this is ridiculous, of course, but these are the guidelines. I'm just telling you what it is. Anything above 140 now is considered stage 2, and you're going to be given medication. You're not leaving the doctor's office without a boatload of drugs in this case. So that is what their goal for all adults is, to be below 130/80. That's the general guideline now as of the new guidelines. And I thought this was interesting that they still are doing the DASH diet, which stands for DASH, Dietary Approach to Stop Hypertension. I always thought that was funny how they name the diets. It's a dietary approach to stop hypertension. What if we did dietary approach to stop fat? Instead of DASH diet, it would be DASF. That doesn't have the same ring. Or how about dietary approach to get healthy? DAGH. That still doesn't have a ring to it. But anyway, it seems like they're just making stuff up. But the dietary approach to stop hypertension, interestingly enough, the new guidelines kind of emphasize they don't like, they have a thing up their rear with the sodium. They don't like sodium. I get it. For a lot of people, you can increase sodium. It tends to increase your blood pressure only because it helps you retain water. But that's not the thing. The sodium tends to come on certain foods. So it's not sodium per se, it's usually the foods that are giving you the trouble. Like, for example, a McDonald's French fry has a lot of sodium. I don't know if it's the sodium or the French fry. I have a suspicion. They did emphasize to increase potassium-rich foods, and I think this is interesting because before they didn't really make much of a deal about this, was to lower sodium and increase potassium. Potassium has a number of different benefits. And for example, just drinking coconut water or eating a lot of vegetables has quite a bit of potassium. And there's been a trend, particularly with social media, to stop eating vegetables, stop eating fruits, because people think they have anti-nutrients, as if you ate a vegetable and the vegetable was sucking nutrients out of your body, that you were actually healthier by just not eating compared to eating vegetables. Like there was a vacuum that it just sucked the nutrients out. This is kind of the thought that a lot of people have. So the guidelines now are to increase potassium for the general public other than if you had chronic kidney disease or if you're eating a certain amount of drugs that retain potassium. But about 4,700 milligrams of potassium is what we should be aiming for. And a lot of times that's quite difficult unless you're eating a lot of vegetables. I have in my water bottle, I have like a potassium that goes in here, and it tastes really good. So you just drink potassium water, or you can buy coconut water or something like that and help. I thought this was the most interesting thing, and I saved this for last to sucker you into watching my entire video, because that's what all YouTubers do. You're supposed to start out your video with, you gotta watch to the end because I'm gonna give you a secret or a gift or something like that. But I forgot to say that at the end. So if you're here at the end, I think that's cool. So, thanks. They actually say to have a goal of abstaining from alcohol. But if you are a female, it's acceptable to have 1 drink a day. And if you're a male, it's acceptable to have 2 drinks a day. And I didn't understand why there's such a difference, other than I can only imagine that if you're a male and you're with a woman that only is allowed to have 1 drink, you need double of what she needs. I don't know where they come up with these numbers or what the science is. I researched it, and they're just, other than men, do men have bigger livers? Are men healthier in the liver, that their liver can handle the alcohol, twice as much alcohol as a female's? No. So I just find it, sometimes I find these recommendations from these big medical groups just flippin' hilarious. But let me know what your thoughts are. These are the 2025 guidelines that came out in August, and it's huge. But when they compare the 2017 guidelines to the 2017, it's almost like some committee got paid to just reword things, because there isn't much of a change. They're still going with the 120 over 80 in terms of anything above that is elevated. The goal now is 130 over 80 instead of the goal of having everybody below 120 over 80. You still should be doing the DASH diet, lower sodium, yada, yada, yada. Increase potassium, which I thought was interesting. And then the last thing, they did throw in, try some meditation to relax for stress. So I just find it interesting that in healthcare, we just kind of poo-poo stress a long time ago. And now I think we're coming of age that we realize that stress plays a major role in health.